Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavad-Gita as it is, chapter number 18. And text number 15 and 16. Sariravan manobiryat karma prarabdhate naraha nyayam va viparitam va Panchaitasya hetavaha tatraivam sati kartaram atmanam kevalam tuyaha pasyatya krita buddhitvan Nasa pasyati durmataha durmatihi sariravan manobiryat karma prarabdhate naraha nyayam va viparitam va panchaitasya hetavaha Tatraivam sati kartaram Atmanam kevalam tuyaha Pasyatya krita buddhitvan Nasa pasyati durmatihi Sariravan manobiryat Karma prarabdhate naraha Nyayam va viparitam va Panchaitasya hetavaha Tatraivam sati kartaram Atmanam kevalam tuyaha Pasyatya kritya buddhitvan Nasa pasyati durmatihi. By the body, vak, speech, manobi, and mind, yet, which, karma, work, prarabdhate, begins, naraha, a person, nyayam, right, va, or, viparitam, the opposite, va, or, pancha, five, ete, all these, tasya, hetavaha, oh, tasya its, hetavaha, causes. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Whatever right or wrong action a man performs by body, mind or speech is caused by these five factors. Purport. The words right and wrong are very significant in this verse. Right work is work done in terms of the prescribed directions of the scriptures, and wrong work is work done against the principle of the scriptural injunctions. But whatever is done requires these five factors for its complete performance. Yeah, text number 16. Tatra, there, evam, thus, sati, being, kartaram, the worker, atmanam, himself, kevalam, only, tu, but, yaha, anyone who pasyati, sees, akrita buddhitvat, due to unintelligence, na, never, saha, he, pasyati, sees, durmatihi, foolish. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Therefore, one who thinks himself the only doer, not considering the 5 factors, is certainly not very intelligent and cannot see things as they are. And please repeat. Therefore, one who thinks himself the only doer, not considering the 5 factors, is certainly not very intelligent and cannot see things as they are. Purport. A foolish person cannot understand that the Supersoul is sitting as a friend within and conducting his actions. Although the material causes are the place, the worker, the endeavor and the senses, the final cause is the Supreme, the Personality of Godhead. Therefore, one should see not only the 4 material causes, but the Supreme Efficient Cause as well. One who does not see the Supreme thinks himself to be the doer. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Malitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandayaham Sri Guruho Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrijatam Sagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Sri Visakan Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namustate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti-vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.
Don't mind, what happened was yesterday she forgot or what she didn't read the 14th verse.
Okay. We'll read the 14th verse as well. Yeah. We're covering those anyway because we can't cover today's verses without going over the 5 actions, so that's no problem. We'll just read it. I'll just read this Sanskrit. Adishtanam tata karta karanam cha pratagvidam vividas cha pratag chesta devam chaivatra panchamam. Okay. We should do the word for word, seeing as these terms are what we're going to be talking about today. Adishtanam, the place. Tata, also. Karta, the worker. Karanam, instruments. Cha, and. Pritakvidam, of different kinds. Vivida, various. Cha, and. Pritak, separate. Chestaha, endeavors. Devam, the Supreme. Cha, also. Eva, certainly. Atra, here. Panchamam, the 5th. In translation, purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. The place of action, the body, the performer, the various senses, the many different kinds of endeavor, and ultimately the supersoul. These are the 5 factors of action. So we can repeat this as well. The place of action, the body. The performer, the various senses, the many different kinds of endeavor, and ultimately the supersoul. These are the 5 factors of action. Purport. The word adhishthanam refers to the body. The soul within the body is acting to bring about the results of activity, and therefore is known as karta, the doer. That the soul is the knower and the doer is stated in the Shruti. Esha hi drashta shrashta, Prashna Upanishad 4.9. It is also confirmed in Vedanta Sutra by the verses Gyota Eva 2.3.18 and Karta Sashtartavatat 2.3.33. The instruments of action are the senses, and by the senses the soul acts in various ways. For each and every action there is a different endeavor, but all one's activities depend on the will of the Supersoul, who is seated within the heart as a friend. The Supreme Lord is the Supercause. Under these circumstances, he who is acting in Krishna consciousness under the direction of the Supersoul, situated within the heart, is naturally not bound by any activity. Those in complete Krishna consciousness are not ultimately responsible for their actions. Everything is dependent on the Supreme Will, the Supersoul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, so I want to just discuss a little bit about how we got here to the 5 causes of action. Because the chapter begins by Arjuna's question. Arjuna says he wants to understand the purpose of renunciation tyag and of the renounced order of life, sannyas. So what Krishna is doing here in these first 3 verses of this answer is he's giving different opinions. And at the final end, he gives his own opinion. So in the first, he's quoting the wise. He says, the giving up of activities that are based on material desire is what great learned men call the renounced order of life, sannyas. And giving up the results of activities is what the wise call renunciation. So here he's quoting the wise and saying that sannyas means giving up activities. And then in the next verse he says, some learned men declare that all kinds of fruitive activities should be given up as faulty. Yet other sages maintain that acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance should never be abandoned. So there's 2 contrasting views here. Some say that the sannyas should be giving up all activities, whereas others say that charity, sacrifice, charity, and penance should never be abandoned. And then Krishna gives his own judgment. So Krishna says renunciation is declared in the scriptures to be of 3 kinds. He says categorically that acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not to be given up. They must be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity, and penance purify even the great souls. So Krishna is saying that activities should not cease. All these activities should be performed without attachment or any expectation of result. They should be performed as a matter of duty. That is my final opinion. And he also explains why activities cannot be given up completely. Prescribed duties should never be renounced. If one gives up his prescribed duties out of illusion, renunciation is said to be in the mode of ignorance. The mode of passion is to give up out of fear of bodily discomfort. And in verse 11, Krishna explains this why we can't give up activities. It is indeed impossible for an embodied being to give up all activities, but he who renounces the fruits of his action is one who has truly renounced. So then, in these verses, Lord Krishna is actually giving the same words, sannyas and tyag, but he's using them together. He's saying that sannyas and tyaga are interchangeable. Now the reason he's saying that, he's just explained. Because actually, if sannyas meant giving up all activities, nobody could take sannyas. Because while we are in this body, we have to maintain this body. We have to feed ourselves. Even if someone puts the food in front of us, we actually have to eat it. Krishna provides the air, but we have to breathe it. We can't give up all activities. Even Bhaktivinoda Thakur has said that if we give up all sense gratification, we will die, because we need to maintain the body by feeding the senses, by activities. Krishna has already said that. In one verse he said it in was 3.8. Niyatam kuru karma tvam karma jayotu hyakarmanaha sarira yatrapichate na prasidyate akarmananha. Perform your duty, perform your prescribed duty, for doing so is better than not working. One cannot even maintain one's physical body without work. And again, in the beginning of the 6th chapter, Krishna explains in the very first verse the similar type of sentiment. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Anasrita karma palam karyam karma karoti yaha sa sannyasi cha yogi cha na niragnir na chakriyaha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, one who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated to is in the renounced order of life, and he is the true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no duty. So this verse, Krishna is specifically saying that the one who is unattached to the fruits of his work is a sannyasi. He is the true sannyasi. So Krishna has clarified his final opinion that sannyas is not possible to give up all activities, because one has to perform activities to maintain the body. So now Krishna is describing these activities, and for understanding these 5 factors of action, one can understand how one becomes entangled by action and how one can give up the activities. So these 5 factors come in, as Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport to text 16, that there are 4 material causes to action, which is the place, which he has described as the body, the worker, which is the embodied soul, the endeavor, and the senses. So these are material causes. And Krishna goes on to explain in the next few verses how all these material causes are subject to the modes of material nature. So in that way, all these material causes are causing bondage according to the modes of material nature in which they are situated or in which they act. So Krishna goes on to explain it further. He says, knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower are the 3 factors that motivate action. The senses, the work, and the doer are the 3 constituents of action. So senses, work, and doer are 3 of our 5 factors of action. And knowledge and the object of knowledge and the knower are some of the motivators. So they create the mentality that's behind the endeavor. The endeavor was one of the 5 factors of action. So according to the knowledge in the 3 modes of nature, one chooses an action. And with the body, with the senses, with the soul, one performs the action. So in that way, according to our knowledge, according to how we control our body and how we work, the activity is under the modes of nature. So I'll just go through this knowledge because it helps to explain our motivation. Okay. That knowledge by which one undivided spiritual nature is seen in all living entities, though they are divided into innumerable forms, you should understand to be in the mode of goodness. So this understanding the undivided spiritual nature is understanding that all the souls are part and parcel of the super soul of Krishna, and that Krishna is also present. So every living entity, although they appear differently manifested, are actually seen to be part and parcel of Krishna. And Krishna is also present there. So this understanding is in the mode of goodness. The knowledge that sees in every body there is a different type of living entity is in the mode of passion. So if we don't see that every living entity is part and parcel of Krishna, that means we're in the mode of passion. And then we react. According to the different body we interact with, we react differently according to the modes of nature. So this is the mode of passion. We simply, what we see in front of our face, we react to. And that knowledge by which one is attached to one kind of work as the all-in-all, without knowledge of the truth, and which is very meager, is said to be in the mode of darkness. So all the way through here, we learn more about the mode of ignorance, how the mode of ignorance sees the right way as the wrong way and the wrong way as the right way, who is attached to one kind of work and not interested in knowledge. They simply keep on doing what they've always been doing. So Bodhidharma explains how this 18th chapter, which is called the perfection of renunciation, how it actually is a summary of the Bhagavad-Gita so far. So he describes the first few verses that we've already covered, which is verses 1 through 12, as a description of karma. The section, a summary of chapters 1 through 6, which is a discussion of acting without expectation of the results of one's activities. So that concluded in text 10 to 12 that Maharaj gave on Friday. The intelligent renouncer situated in the mode of goodness neither is hateful of inauspicious work nor attached to auspicious work, and has no doubts about work. It is indeed impossible for the embodied beings to give up all activities, but he who renounces the fruits of action is called one who is truly renounced. For one who is not renounced, the threefold fruits of action, desirable, undesirable, and mixed, accrue after death. But those who are in the renounced order of life have no such result to suffer or enjoy. So, and then this particular part that we're in at the moment, which is a little complicated because it's a description of Gyan, and that runs from verses 13 through to verse 18, which covers these 5 factors of action, and coming up to the knower, the object of knowledge, and the senses, the work, the doer, are the motivators and constituents of acting. So this is said to be a summary of chapters 13 through 17. The fact that we have to understand what is actually happening within the body. So thereafter, in the 18th chapter, there's a section of the different varnas and how they are situated in the modes of nature. And Burijan calls this how the modes of nature control all activities, which is the point of why we're learning these factors of action. We have to understand the position on the modes of nature. Then from 41 till 48, Burijan describes this as Krishna describing freedom from reaction by occupational work. So at this point Krishna says that one should perform his prescribed duties, and by doing so one can reach perfection. So by performing prescribed duties, by not expecting results for one's activities, and by offering the results to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can actually come to the perfect stage. And then from 49 to 45, from confidential knowledge, from reaction-free work through Jnana Yoga to the Brahman platform and pure devotional service. So concluding this one is 1855, which we shall read because it's a very important one, which concludes this section about how reaction-free work will bring us to the Brahman platform. Bhakcha mam abhijanati yavanyascha svitatvataha tato mam tatvato gyatva vishate tadanantaram. One can understand me as I am, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of me by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. So in the previous verse, Krishna has said that one comes to the situation, the platform of Brahman, and then he comes to devotional service. Brahma bhuta prasanatmi na sochati na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. One who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed to every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. So by taking up this work in the mode of goodness, without expectation of results, because it's a point of duty. Of course, here Krishna is giving Arjuna very good reasons to perform his duty and fight on the battlefield. But the performance of duty applies for everybody. As Krishna has said, these acts of charity, austerity and penance can't be given up. One's prescribed duties should not be given up. They should be performed. So doing so in the right consciousness, one comes to this Brahman platform. He becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He becomes equally disposed to every living entity. So this is the knowledge in the mode of goodness, seeing every living entity as equal, as part and parcel of the Supreme. And in that state, he attains pure devotional service to me, mad bhaktim labate param. And then how 55 concludes by saying that one can understand Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead only by devotional service. So then Burijan explains that working in pure devotional service is from 56 through to 60. Surrender to the super soul is from 61 through to 63. And the most confidential knowledge, become a pure devotee, 64 to 66. And then preaching and studying Bhagavad-Gita. So what we haven't covered yet is that verse number 15, which speaks about mind, body and action. Krishna said, whatever right or wrong action a man performs by body, mind or speech is caused by these 5 factors. So ultimately in the 6th chapter, the Lord Krishna has explained that the goal of yoga is to control the mind, to engage the mind in devotional service. But we do this by engaging our activities and our words properly. There is a verse in Bhakti-Rasamrita Sindhu where these 5 words are used, how we engage them all in devotional service. This is Bhakti-Rasamrita Sindhu 1-187. It's the verse that Prabhupada most quotes when he talks about words, mind and activities. Iha yasya hare dasye karmana manasa gira nikalasvapyavastaso jivan mukta sa uchyate. One who engages in the transcendental service of the Lord in body, mind and word is to be considered liberated in all conditions of existence. So this distinction, Prabhupada also says in verse 15, how this mind, body, mind and speech, we have to be conscious of all 3. Our ultimate aim is to control the mind, but our speech and our actions can get us in the most entanglement. The mind, of course, is Lord Arjuna has described as being more difficult than controlling the wind. But by our words we can offend devotees, and this can get in the way of our devotional service. So we very much want to be cautious of how we use our words. And of course by our actions we can do completely wrong things. So we have these 5 factors of action. Now 4 of them are material. So if we go through these, understanding these modes of nature with these 4 material factors of action, we can understand how to position them as well as we can. For instance, the body, the place, adhishtanam. This is one of the factors of action. So we know from Prabhupada's instruction that we can have the body associate with the mode of goodness by keeping it clean internally and externally, by chanting, by keeping our surroundings also. The place that around us also affects our consciousness. If we keep an environment which is clean. Prabhupada describes that the forest is in the mode of goodness. The city is in the mode of passion. And the brothels and drinking houses are in the mode of ignorance. But the temple of Lord Krishna is transcendental to the 3 modes. So in this way we can keep our body and our mind in the best position we can. We can try and keep it in association. If not a temple like this temple, at least a temple in our own homes where we center our lives around service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In that way we can help to approach that 5th factor of action and help to free us. So the other, the performer, the super soul. So our process to purify our consciousness is the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Srila Prabhupada has explained very carefully for us that all of this knowledge is available to us, but we have to purify our consciousness. And the way that we purify our consciousness is chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. It's not that by our own intelligence we'll be able to realize this knowledge, this truth. We have to actually engage in the process of purification, Chaito Darpana Marjanam, in order to purify the performer, which is the next of the factors of action. And the various senses, so this includes the working senses and the knowledge acquiring senses, the ones that perform action also. and the various kinds of endeavor. So, in order to start an endeavor, Prabhupada explains the endeavor here. Where? In that verse he just says, for every action there are different kinds of endeavor. But later on when he's explaining the motivators of action, he explains that according to this knowledge in the different modes of nature, we will be motivated to action differently. So if our knowledge is in the mode of goodness, we see that we should do things because they ought to be done. We see that all living entities are equal. No one is my friend and no one is my enemy. Then that will flavor our action. By this knowledge will flavor our endeavor, and that will flavor our action, and bring it towards the fifth factor, which is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Super Soul. Action, knowledge. Okay. Now, I'd like to know if anyone has some discussion, some things to add, or some questions that will help to clarify this, because I feel I've been talking a lot, and I hope you understood something of it, but it's a little complicated to try and explain. Does anyone have something to add that they'd like to add to the explanation? Hare Krishna, Prabhu. The microphone is behind you, Prabhu. No? Okay, you speak and I'll repeat.
Just like we are sitting here in the class, listening, but the mind sometimes is going somewhere very difficult to control, just like Arjuna saying is easy to control wind but not to control mind. Similar way, sometimes we are sitting somewhere and not listening, it seems that we are listening, but our mind is sometimes running here and there in different activities, or it's just like in three modes of nature. We are entangled with this one. So how it is that possible, even though if we are chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, but still the mind is restless and it doesn't be in one place.
Okay, so the question is that we might be sitting in the right place and trying to listen, that we might be chanting and trying to chant nicely, but still the mind is wandering here and there and is so hard to control. So Krishna gives some advice in the 6th chapter. He says it's indeed very difficult to control the mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. So, of course, that's not so easy. The mind is very strong and wanders. But Srila Prabhupada explains that we keep trying. We follow this process. We don't ever give up. Sanatana Goswami also confirms it when he discusses in Brihad Bhagavatamrita that provided we take to this process and keep going on this process, of course our endeavor is there. We can't just take to it very casually. If we want to concentrate when chanting, various senior devotees have described different ways. Very nicely in one class, Mother Lakshmi Moni was asked a question similar to that. How to control the mind while chanting, how to focus the mind. And she said that the answer was, whatever works for you now, do it. Because the nature of the mind is such that something will work for some time, and then the mind will take that for granted, and you have to find something else. And then after some time the mind will take that for granted, and you can find something else. So she said it's not that there's a perfect way to control your mind, because the mind is tricky like that. it gets used to what you're trying to do and then takes it for granted. So we have to continually put in this endeavor to find something new. The most common recommendations I've heard from, like Burijan Prabhu, is you begin by hearing one word. Then you try and hear one mantra and you try and extend it. And every time your mind slips away, even Krishna tells in the Bhagavad-Gita, you bring it back. It's not that you become so depressed because you can't control the mind that you give up. I had one friend who was a Mayavadi, and she wouldn't start chanting because she couldn't control her mind. But if you're like that, then you will never be able to control your mind, because this is the process. It is the goal, but it is also the process of purification. So we have to endeavor, but we have to endeavor with this determination, enthusiasm, and patience. Utsahan nischayat dairyat, tat karma parvashanat. So tat karma parvashanat, we're given these instructions. We have to endeavor to follow them, but with enthusiasm, confidence, and patience. And then gradually. So we have to become mindful of our own progress. We might not notice day by day our progress. One day we might suddenly seem to be falling into Maya again, and we might get depressed. But if we take it over a longer period, if we remember what we were like a year ago or 5 years ago, we will be able to see some difference. It's also described how we can see our progress in Krishna consciousness by our detachment from matter, by our detachment from other things, or by our getting rid of enviousness. Envious is another thing which is completely opposed to devotional service. So in those things we can see our progress, but not day by day. We might get depressed because sometimes up and sometimes down, but over a longer period we can see progress, and that will give us some hope to keep going on the process, never give it up. Something more, Prabhu?
One more.
Yes, Prabhu.
Just like most of miniature, like that. So sometimes we say that we have independence, I have to control whether I can control or no. Sometimes it's that we cannot control the things. Whatever, suppose I want to pass urine, I cannot control. I maybe 5 minutes, 7 minutes, I can, but I cannot control 24 hours that I will not pass this thing. So this thing is very difficult sometimes, that we are acting in the most of material nature, that we cannot control the things.
Yeah, we cannot control the modes of nature. Krishna is much more powerful than us. Krishna's energy, Maya, is much more powerful than us. This body has come to us because of our past actions, and we have to try and utilize it in Krishna's service while we're embodied in it. We do have to make an effort to try and maintain it as best we can. I mean, if we try and completely ignore our body, which is the point Krishna is making, then the body will completely be opposed to us. If we don't eat for a week, we won't be able to do much. And Prabhupada, they say he didn't eat for almost the last month that he was on this planet, but we can't stop eating. We have to maintain the body. We're forced to. Because, but this is also part of our duty. There was another nice verse in the Bhagavatam, 1:2:10, which explains about doing these activities to maintain the body. 1:2:10. Karmasyan indriya pritir labo jiveta yavata jivasya tattva jigyasa narto yas chasma chehat karmabihi. Life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works. So here is being stated by Sutta Goswami that we should work for self-preservation, for a healthy life. And Prabhupada explains in the purport to this verse how working for preservation of the body to maintain our health in order so that we can engage in devotional service is not binding. In fact, it's required. We must maintain our body in order that we can persecute devotional service. We're not so elevated that we can let our body go and die next week and go back to Godhead. We never think ourselves so well qualified. So we try to maintain the body nicely so that we can continue in this process of devotional service and become purified. We'll never be fully in control. If we want to be, of course, that's a material desire.
Just like Master, in Ekadashi we like to do fasting. We think that we Ekadashi have to fast. But then we say that we have to maintain our body, then I have to eat something and this one. So mind, how we can concentrate our mind on fasting and then eating?
Yeah, so Ekadasi, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he had some devotees who said they couldn't go out preaching on Ekadasi because they didn't have enough energy because they were fasting. And Bhaktisiddhanta says, you eat grains, eat a full meal and go out and preach. Preaching is more important. So Prabhupada didn't give us severe austerities because he knew that with the type of body that we have in this particular time, a lot of us can't handle severe austerities. There are people who feel that austerities are good for them, and everybody has to make their own choice about that. But we have to make that choice intelligently with advice, whether it's helping our devotional service or not. If I fast all day and all I do is think of food, is that helping my devotional service? So it's not for me to give a guideline for others. But Prabhupada, he was asked in Vrindavan, he was speaking on Nectar of Devotion. He was asked about Urjavrat, because Urjavrat is described in Nectar of Devotion, how it's important. So Urjavrat is Kartik Vrat. And the devotee said to Prabhupada, so what is Urjavrat? And he says, you simply chant Maha Mantra without stopping, 24 hours a day. Don't eat, don't sleep. And then he said, can you do it? And a devotee answered, I don't know. And everybody laughed. Now, in the transcript in Vedabase, the story finishes there, but somebody in a class said that somebody then asked Prabhupada back, can you do it? And Prabhupada replied, I don't know. So Prabhupada was saying that yes, the austerity is there, but that's not necessarily a part of our process. It's given, and many devotees in Vrindavan choose to follow austerities, but we have to make the choice if it's good for our devotional service or not. I don't fast. I follow Ekadasi Vrat, but I eat Ekadasi food. I don't fast. And I never do Nirjal because it's not good for me. Where is the point of doing Nirjal when I know it'll give me a migraine and then I can't do any service? Our process is to try and engage our mind in devotional service. And by doing so, we're establishing a relationship with Krishna. Any austerity that's not good for us will simply make us hard-hearted. So it's not advised. But I'm not telling people not to do austerity because for some people it's good for them. It's not for me to say. Thank you. Any other discussion? Anyone else want to clarify the 5 factors of action? The main point of the 5 factors of action is understanding that 4 of these factors are material and they can come under the material modes, and that we understand how to try and raise our consciousness by associating with a higher mode. Krishna says, Guna Sangha. By associating with the modes, we're affected. It's not that we become depressed because our body is in the mode of ignorance and we can't do anything about it. No, we can purify our existence by associating with a higher mode and it gives us a better chance of being able to continue performing our devotional service. And the ultimate is to come to the working according to our duty, without desire for results, and working to please the fifth factor of action, which is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna. Hare Krishna.
We know that we hear, we read, and we understand that Krishna is, for a devotee, or a fully Krishna conscious person, Krishna is guiding the action from within as a super soul. Sometimes, I mean, I don't consider myself a devotee, but sometimes I wonder, did Krishna instruct me or guide me to do this particular action, or was that my desires and my lusts and whatever?
Yeah, so how we can realize the instructions of the Super Soul. How do we know the Super Soul may be guiding us, or it may be something else guiding us? So, yeah, I mean, Prabhupada in some places says that the Super Soul is there guiding us. He's within us. But we cannot take it for granted. So our process is to reconfirm. I mean, there was a time when the devotees would keep coming to Prabhupada after the class and asking so many questions. They were asking questions and questions and questions and questions. And Prabhupada said, read my books. The answers are in my books. And he said, keep on reading, repeated reading, and the answers will come to you. So it's not that every time we want to do a single thing, we should ask for confirmation. But we have the instructions given in Prabhupada's books, the instructions in Shastra. We have Guru, Sadhu and Shastra as confirmation. Now for most things we don't need to confirm. For most things we can understand if we're prompted to do an action, it may be the Super Soul, or at least it's not something bad for us. But for a major decision we might go to those three ways of confirming, Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, to just make sure that what we're doing is in accordance with Krishna's instructions. Of course, at a point we have to develop a certain amount of faith. There's no simple answer to what we should do all the time. We have to have some faith in the Super Soul also. Prabhupada also says it's important that we actually develop our relationship with the deities. We don't just take everything mechanically forever. We should develop a relationship with the deities. Prabhupada even instructed that we can go in front of the deities and put our problems to them. He said that's what Krishna Balarama are here for. Because Balarama is like our older brother. He's Krishna's older brother, but we can also treat him like our older brother. And we can go and stand in front of him and we can say, Prabhupada said, you say, dear sir, this is my problem. So like that, we're supposed to develop this relationship through the relationship with the Super Soul. Even we developed a relationship with the deity. It's described that the deity takes the seat of the Super Soul. So our Ishtadev, the deity that is very dear to us, will actually take that seat of the Super Soul and be our advisor very closely. But if we're not sure, we should confirm with these external factors, Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. Yes?
Sometimes it does happen that, you have a major life decision to make.
Yes.
And you're at that crossroad, like Arjuna was at that crossroad and then he surrendered. And then you sit in front of your study or you chant with that meditation, show me where to turn, right or left. And then finally you decide, okay, I will turn left, and then a few years down the road you realize, what a big mistake I made. But then you question yourself, but at that time when I had that decision to make, I was begging Krishna to help me. So how do you reconcile that mistake and that prayers?
Well, from whose point of view is it a mistake? I mean, it's a learning experience,
Yeah.
and that you may think you would have had a better choice doing something else. But at the same time, these difficulties that come to us, when we are coming to devotional service, difficulties that come to us, we can see as being lessons also. That if life was always easy, then maybe we wouldn't learn so much. These difficulties are like tests, but they also test our resolve. So it's not that the right course of action may not be the one that gives us an easy life. The right course of action might be the choice that we made, even though it seems to create so much problem later. Like the problems in the life of the Pandavas, problems came to them. So many reverses came to them. But they didn't go back and regret their actions in the past.
Also the point is that to certain people, even devotees, those kind of situation has planted seed of doubt and has lessened their connection. So I was praying to Krishna, I was begging Krishna at that time when I needed him, when I needed a decision to make. I had nobody, I wanted him, but look where I am today. So this can go both ways, can either bring us closer to Krishna, the mistake that we make, that we think is a mistake, or that same incident can take someone away from Krishna.
Yeah, it's always sad to see someone who seems to be taken away from Krishna. But Krishna reassures us in the 2nd chapter that any endeavor we make, there is no loss or diminution. So we can't see the bigger picture that Krishna can see. I mean, perhaps while in this body, certain devotees just can't make it in this particular body with this particular motive, because the modes of nature come with the body. And maybe this body itself is stopping some people. The modes of nature are stopping in this body. So maybe their time will come in another body. And Krishna wants all living entities to come back to him. He doesn't want any of them to fall away. But still, everybody must take this path and make the right choices. Make the wrong choices and learn by them. But also we're reminded somewhere Krishna says that having once come to devotional service, a person can never be satisfied in material life again, because always they will remember that devotional service, material life doesn't have something that devotional service has. So even though they may seem to be completely lost, there was a story, I don't remember the name, one sannyasi who went to Japan to preach. Do you remember anyone remember the name? It was the name of one of Krishna's cowherd friends. Maybe. So he went to Japan to preach, and it was very difficult. But Prabhupada had said, if you go there to preach, I will take you back to Godhead. So he fell away from devotional service because it was so difficult preaching in that condition. He completely lost his devotional service completely. He never recovered. But his sister came to the devotees later and said at the point of leaving his body, he sat up in his bed and said, Prabhupada, you've come. So he was not in devotional service at that time at all. He was not chanting, he was seemingly fallen into Maya. But he sat up before he left his body and said, Prabhupada, you've come. So we can't see from Krishna's point of view everything that happens. For ourselves, we simply try to help as many people as we can, advance and stay in Krishna consciousness. It's not easy. Sometimes living in association of devotees is not easy, because we all come from so many different origins. And of course in this age most of us come from the lower modes of nature, and we're trying to purify ourselves. We take up this process, we're on the path of purification. Prabhupada says that makes us pure, but that doesn't make us easy to live with. So it's not easy, but it's the process of purification. and we can't see from Krishna's point of view how the process will come. But as Maharaj was saying on Friday, we have developed faith in the process. The process is perfect, and we develop faith in it enough for our determination to keep going on the process. In the 11th canto also, Krishna is speaking to Uddhava, and he says, my devotees, they will sometimes fall into sense gratification. But there are two differences. One difference is they know it will never lead to success, because they know it's destined to be miserable. And the second one is they repented. They're regretful. So, and he says they're my devotees. He doesn't say they're not my devotees. He says my devotees will sometimes fall into sense gratification, but they will not stay there because they know it's not the answer, and they regret it. So they will come back, and Krishna claims them as his own. So we have to remember that Krishna is claiming us and everyone else. Any other comments or points about today's class? Okay, thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srimad Bhagavad-Gita ki jai.